macro photography. Canon RF 100. Bubbles inside of bubbles. Tiny details, so small. That's what she said.
Hello friends, I might just have a new favorite lens. This is the Canon RF 100 f2.8 L series macro lens, and I've been using it for the last week and it is rocking my world. But first, a disclaimer, if you're here for a full lens review, this is not the video for you. I will leave a link in the description to one of the best reviews on this lens. Go check it out if that's what you want to do. If you're here for just some macro tips and tricks to get you started, you're in the right place. Let's jump into tip number 1. Use a tripod and a third hand. Third hand we'll get to in just a second. But a tripod, something like this will work just fine. I also have a smaller one. This is actually my favorite one. This is the small rig. I think I made a review on this. This is what I've been using for most of my macro shots. Super inexpensive, easy to use. Now this lens does offer up to 5 stops of shake correction, but I still recommend using a tripod where you can, because even holding your lens while you're shooting, especially in macro photography, just your body breathing is moving in and out of focus, and you don't want that. Just lock it off on a tripod. It's going to help you get a much cleaner image. Now for the third hand, that's essentially putting your object on a tripod or locking it off. I like to use this putty. In Ireland we call it blue tack, but this is not blue tack. This is the American version of blue tack, and it works just fine. It's essentially a gum or a putty, and you can like place an object on it and it's gonna like keep it in place. So something like this is really handy for locking off your object to make sure that it doesn't move. So then you have your camera on a tripod and your object is locked off. No shaking, no movement involved. Now, of course, there are other things you can get, like a focusing rail, but that's if you're really getting into macro photography and you're going down that rabbit hole. I don't have one of those. I don't particularly need one, but they are pretty cool nonetheless. Moving on to tip number 2. Manual focus is going to allow you to have the most control over using your camera when shooting macro photography. So combining tip number 1 with tip number 2, we're going to have our camera on a tripod locked off, and then we can make small adjustments to the manual focusing ring. That's going to help us fine tune our image to make sure we get it in focus the way we want to. The auto focusing works just fine, but I recommend doing it yourself in manual mode. It just gives you more control over exactly where you want to put that focus. Tip number 3, use your phone to take the picture. So like I mentioned in tip number 1, just breathing while holding a camera is going to move your focus in and out. You want to eliminate that completely. You can do that by using your phone to trigger the shot. So you're not even pressing the shutter on your camera, because that is adding movement to your camera. You don't want that. You might as well just trigger it off your phone. I use the Canon Connect app on my phone. It works just fine most of the time. And I think that is an absolute must when shooting macro photography. Moving on to tip number 4. When shooting macro photography, the ideal depth of field is almost always going to be shallow. Therefore, the typical aperture number for shooting macro photography is about f5.6 to f11. Those small aperture values are crucial for getting your picture sharp and in focus. But shooting at something like f11, you're probably going to have to bump the ISO on your camera to let in more light, or you could add a flash. That's tip number 5. Combining a flash with ambient or natural light is going to allow you to shoot at f11, and instead of bumping your ISO and adding potential noise into your image, a flash is going to help cancel that out. So there you have it, guys. Those are my quick tips for shooting macro photography. I love this lens. I'm going to go take some more pictures with it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if it's your first time here for more tutorials like this in the future, and I'll see you in another one very soon. Peace.